Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Ikest, and I'm honored today to have a conversation with my friend Nia Rose. Nia is the Director of Executive Account Management with DCM Services out of Minnesota. Nia and I haven't known each other a long time, but we've had some wonderful conversations, and I just really admire Nia's spirit and her commitment to being a better person, both personally and professionally. And so we're going to get into some important topics today, but I thought I'd start out by just asking Nia to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Bill, first and foremost. And I just want to echo my admiration for you. I've told you in the past, you're one of the most genuinely curious people that I have come to meet through HFMA and just in general. And it inspires me to be curious as well. And I think that's how we linked up to have this conversation. So I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to be talking on this topic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. And as you said, my name's Nia Rose. I work for DCM Services and Executive Account Management. I have the pleasure of working with some of the top healthcare systems in the United States, and it's been a lovely journey here at DCM Services. Another thing I do here at DCM is I work as the wellness chair, and wellness in general, all facets of wellness, are incredibly interesting and important to me. My mom was a therapist, a psychologist by trade before she retired. So I think we've normalized the conversation around mental health in my household since I was very young. So I've always just been, curious about people and why they do what they do and what leads them to particular outcomes and things of that nature.
So
So
I suspect when you would come home from school and you'd sit down and have a conversation with your mom and she says, "So, how was your day?" And you said, "Fine." That wasn't good enough for her. She
it
wanted to
was
go a little
never
deeper.
exactly. And what was annoying when I was a teenager really became part of my, you know, just my internal compass, wondering about people and wondering how you're doing, not just that standard, fine, I'm fine, but how
Yeah.
are you really? And so, yeah, I mean, I started at DCM as a receptionist, and oddly enough, that lended really well into being an account manager because you're making connections. You're asking about people. What's important to you? What are you
Yeah.
all about? What
Right.
what matters to you? And that just asking questions and being open to the answer and not listening to respond, but listening to listen is, a big part of just being a good account manager and being
I think that's
listened.
something that both of us really appreciate is the value of those relationships and really getting to know people as individuals before we get to know them as clients or perhaps prospective clients or whatever. Everybody's got a story, right? And some of those stories are just really, really interesting and enjoyable to listen to. So today we're talking about mental health, which is a
Mhm.
very important topic. I don't care what industry you're in. There's a personal component to it. There's a professional component to it. And I know this is a particularly important topic for you. Tell us why mental health is something that you're passionate about, and if you want to share a little bit about your story and just what it is that you enjoy having opportunities to talk about this particular subject.
Yeah, definitely. And I think mental health, it's such a timely topic, and we can all agree. We're in this loneliness epidemic, which we've probably all heard presented one way or another in the industry, maybe in our organizations or in a conference that we've been at, or we hear about how our kids are socially isolated, things like that. They're in this generation where they have technology at their fingertips, but they don't often know how to get out of the house and order food. Like I asked my daughter to make an appointment for something, and she literally wrote in her phone notes app the words she would say. She was so scared just
Oh,
to make an appointment. And I thought, have we failed these kids? Like she
right,
doesn't know how to make an appointment, but
right, right,
she talks on the phone all day to her friends in a group chat. That's crazy.
right on.
But yeah, mental health has just always been important. And I think we have almost made it this blanket that we don't know what it is. Like we all have mental health. It's not good nor bad. It's just like our physical health. It's there's layers, there's nuances, and it's always just been really important for me to not villainize if we're having a down day or if we're having a down season. And so I have, as as a person, as an individual, I have struggled with my own mental health challenges. I have family members in my home who have struggled with their own mental health challenges. And I've always sought to just normalize the conversation surrounding that. Because I think that that really shapes you. You know, if you have struggled with your own mental health, your empathy for others and your ability to normalize that around the conversation surrounding mental health, um, you kind of have an ability to be a soft landing space for others and make people feel a little more comfortable to talk about it. And that's going to bring a tremendous value to the workplace relationships you have. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I both consider ourselves kind of glass half full kind of people. But it's important that we help people out that might not be feeling that way. And I think that it's you've heard the old saying that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. And I think it is so important to just your frame of mind. I mean, I've been having conversations with people recently on more of a personal level of just how you can condition your mind. We all have that inner voice, how you can really condition your mind to begin to look at things perhaps more hopeful, more confident, more positive, as opposed to listening to that other voice that might be on the other shoulder that says, you can't do this, you're failing, you're never going to get out of this or whatever. I mean, so it can be a real struggle for sure.
oh, 100%. And that's the voice we hear most often. We talk about the societal pressures, the things that we hear, the messaging. Well, imagine that voice, that inner monologue that we're hearing from constantly. So, yeah, checking those thoughts. Like our brain's whole job is just to make up thoughts. And it's our job to challenge some of them and say, you know what, I hear you. I know you're here to protect me, but we're not going to buy into that thought
Yep,
today. Like
yep, that's
it's not
exactly right.
serving me.
That's exactly right.
Hmm.
Nia, what would your advice be for someone who feels like their mental health needs some attention, or perhaps the mental health of a loved one is a little bit out of sync, and they want to try to help and pick them up a little bit?
I think 100% to listen to that voice inside. Like, I know that we can turn to experts, we can turn to family for advice, and that's all valid and that's all important part of the journey. But we have so much innate ability to heal ourselves that we don't trust sometimes. And, you and I, we were at a conference just, in February where we had a keynote talking about mental health. And he said something that just resonated so deeply. And he said, crisis is 100% self-defined. And I thought, that
Wow.
is so profound. And I don't know why him saying it that way just hit me, but sometimes we need this. We almost need someone else to tell us, like, that's bad. And you really should seek help for that. And I've been there too, where I mean, a couple of years back here at DCM Services, we were doing this Make It Okay campaign where we were speaking to our employee base about the stigma with mental health and how it's okay. It's okay to be struggling with your mental health. And I was up there presenting and I was going through like a hard time personally. And I'm telling everyone, it's okay. Well, I wasn't even addressing my own thing. And I thought, wow, the hypocrisy there. I'm telling everyone it's okay. And
Yeah.
I won't even, dial a phone number and make an appointment for myself. And so I think it's like we have to get to some self-trust with ourselves where it's like, if you're thinking even a little bit that maybe I should look into this, that's all the permission you need. You don't have
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
that validated. You don't need to cross an extra T or dot an extra I. Just go ahead and reach out. A small reach out can lead to a big, big, big ripple effect of positivity in your life and
It
some.
sure can. I think I can
Mhm.
relate to what you're talking about. I think about the pandemic when all of a sudden, the world's changed as we knew it. And for you and I, who were so used to being out in front of people, all of a sudden a lot of that went virtual. And, again, I mean, I tried to stay positive through the whole thing, but everybody's tank after a while runs a little bit on empty,
Yeah.
and we all need something to sort of fill us back up and lift us back up. And so I personally have found, and I sense maybe the same for you, that knowing that I can, if nothing else, just listen and be a voice, a resource or a voice for other people brings me great joy. And,
Yes,
knowing that, hey, it's really not all about me every day. It's, I really want to, I've been in this industry now over 35 years and I've made some wonderful relationships. And I've seen some people along the way who have just really struggled. I've seen some people overcome some incredible challenges. I've seen some people take on some incredible challenges. I've seen people have some incredible loss. But I want to be there. I want to be a cheerleader, right? I want to be there to sort of pat them on the back and be that coach on the sideline that says, "Come on, the game's not over. We're still in this thing."
totally.
I think it's important to have some of those types of people in your corner, really to help support you when you're because we all have bad days, no question about it.
Totally.
And
Totally.
yeah, Nia, you presented at a few events. One in particular, I think it was back in December of 23. You went out to Palm Springs
Yes, I
and
did.
got to present at a women in consumer finance conference, I think it was. But
hmm
talk about that a little bit, and what was it that made you decide that you just wanted to share more of your story with others?
Yes, yes. I shared what I describe as a deeply personal story that was also the least remarkable, most common story you might ever hear. So it was about a season where my son had gotten sick and then he struggled with his mental health. And I got his permission to share because I think that's also extremely important. If I'm going to share someone else's story, I want to make sure that they're on board with that. And
Sure.
he joked, he's like, "Oh, you just love to tell my business," because that's always what a teenager will say. But I was just so proud of him. He went through a seizure disorder diagnosis with epilepsy. And then through that time, his mental health just really plummeted and he was engaging in some self-harm. And I did not have, like, even with a mother who is a psychologist, and even with all the resources at my fingertips and being this, I facilitate bi-weekly mental health support group through NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Like I felt like I was so resourced and I did not know what to do. And I felt like I was failing everyone around me. And through these conversations I was having with just some girlfriends in my life, I started to like put together the pieces for how I was going to pick myself back up after a hard season. And what really struck me is that, which is true, we're all carrying something. And sometimes you know a little bit about someone's story, but there's so many people. And what I found after presenting at this women's conference, which, was attended by about 400 different women
Mm,
afterward, so many women came to me with their story of what they were holding. And I was just blown away. Like so many professional, polished, remarkable people were quietly dealing with so much more than what I thought, was a hard season of my life. And I think that's just common. Like we're all,
sure.
it's not as if we're trying to be inauthentic, but we're taught in a sense and rewarded for powering through for like the shiny after, and we're often just stuck in this messy middle where things aren't better yet. And what are we to do, So I wanted to think and reflect on some actionable steps I took to kind of get myself out of one of those hard seasons. And more so, I just wanted to normalize that it's okay not to be okay. And it's really about doing less and listening to yourself and taking these small steps that end up being humongous steps actually as you look back and reflect on them. So it was a very positive experience for me, certainly. And just one of those reminders that we're not alone in those dark times. Like
Yeah,
a
most
lot of us
definitely.
are going through it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's very personal. I appreciate you sharing some of that.
You bet.
I think you know that I've talked on the topic of managing professional burnout,
Yes.
and because I truly worry about some of our colleagues out there, right? I'm talking specifically for our healthcare industry. There are people that are under an enormous amount of pressure. I break it up into the professional side and the personal side. On the professional side, you and I know that hospital staff are dealing with staffing issues, they're dealing with reimbursement issues, they're dealing with denials, they're maybe dealing with system conversions or cyber attacks, and who knows what else, right? That's just on the professional side. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of those same people on the personal side could be dealing with maybe they've got they're caring for an elderly parent. They might have a sick family member. They might be a single parent managing a house full of young kids.
Mhm.
just any number of things. Maybe they've had a family member or a spouse recently laid off. They're feeling financial pressures and whatever. And I mean, just when you think about all that, it can be very, very overwhelming. One of the things that I found out was that I did a little bit of research because I'm not certified on the topic. I'm not an expert by any means. But again, I think it's an important conversation to have along these lines of good mental health. And what I found out is number one, anybody that's feeling that way is by no means alone. There are so
Yeah.
many people that are struggling, and I think it's important to as an individual, have an accountability partner. Maybe you kind of alluded to that earlier, having somebody, whether you work with them or they're in your personal life, who you can just sort of lean on, who will tell you some of the hard truths sometimes when they see that things might not be going the way that you need for them to. I think it's also important to be intentional about it. I think we all sense the when things are building up. You talk about the season in your life when it just seemed like, doggone, everything's piling on. It's like, okay, I'm ready for a break whenever,
Yeah.
it's the time is now. And I think you just have to take the first step, like you said, to maybe put a plan together to step through that. And when you're faced with some of those tough times, to keep moving forward. But do you have any other thoughts about that? Anything in general as it relates to that you want to share?
Yeah, certainly. I think sometimes depression and just that burnout can really lie to you. It doesn't tell you that, oh, this is a hard season or this season is not good. It tells you you're not good. And that's the lie that it tells. And that's so hard. And so in terms of, what you're saying with worrying about our colleagues, especially people in those caring professions, like they're at an immense risk for that compassion fatigue because they're giving of themselves in such ways, like not only on the professional front, but like you said, we're in the sandwich generation where we've got our elderly parents and we've got our dependents and our kids.
Yeah.
And, even when they're off the payroll, we're still up worrying about them if we have them. And so, yeah, it can be really tough. And just a couple really easy wins that I've come to implement in my profession, especially if you have people that report up to you.
Yeah.
Me and my supervisor, we carve out the first 5 to 10 minutes of our one-on-one. If we have 45 minutes to an hour, that first 5 or 10 is just how are you? What's going on in your life? How are your kids doing? And we know that that time is protected. And that allows us to be real with each other. And that didn't come on day one. That was after we built some relationship and we'd gotten to know each other. But on day one, you can start to build that relationship to get to that point where you can be authentic with each other. Just a real check-in. So even if it's in a team meeting, sharing something about yourselves. And I know some people cringe at the fun fact, they don't want to go there. It's like, I'm
Right.
here to work. And I get that. But
Yeah.
just kind of listening to who's across from you and kind of picking up, letting them take the lead there. Another one is to your point, I think you were kind of alluding to this. I have a colleague who I am close to, like she did my hair for my wedding and I just happened to know her and I've worked with her for 10 years. So we have scheduled an hour once a month where we talk about our professional goals, what we're working on in terms of just managing our clients and closing deals, but we also do half the time to work on our personal goals. And so having that place at work that's contained to help better ourselves personally and professionally is just a welcomed hour on the calendar. And I think we can all carve out that hour. So, and if we have to cut it to half hour, if we have to move it from time to time, because life does get busy,
It sure
we do
does.
that. But finding that time within the constructs of work is really nice. And it just adds a little sunshine to your day. And it's like, I'm not alone here and I have this person and it is my accountability buddy, but it's also just a person that lets me know, like, sometimes you don't see yourself as others see you. And it's nice to have someone hold a mirror to you and be like, I am doing
Absolutely.
a good job. I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I had somebody in one of my sessions who said, they believe in an open door policy as a leader, as a manager, right?
Yeah.
But they said the reality of it is there's some days where they've just got so much going on, they can't take that time. And so they were
Yes.
asking for advice. And somebody in the room said, you know what? It's okay to close your door.
Yes.
Or it's okay when somebody comes in to say, you know what, I want to give you my undivided attention. I'm just working on this. I've got a deadline. Could we perhaps talk about this and visit with each other at the end of the day or tomorrow morning at a certain time or whatever it is? And that it's okay to do that. You don't have to be, as the manager, you don't have to be there for everybody all the time, right?
Totally.
And I think that that's really important. But I love your ideas about just scheduling the time and just yeah, just checking in. And I think a lot of people almost need to be hit upside the head to realize that they're in a bad place. I
Yeah.
reference another example of a healthcare leader whose organization put them through a management assessment. And the
Mm,
assessment showed him that the person he was trying to be really wasn't who he was as a person,
wow.
and he just really needed to reset. And so, he was getting up early and he was logging onto his computer and getting right to work. Well, now he still gets up early, but
Yeah.
he has a cup of coffee. He does some professional development kind of stuff, and just sort of watches, as in his words, watches the world wake up around him,
Yeah.
kind of get his mind right before he plugs in and starts working. But the assessment, he was pushing it off like, I don't need it, I don't need it. And in reality, he credits it with a lot of ways saving his life because he was already at a point of burnout.
Oh, I could only imagine. And the thing is, we're all have our unique giftings that are so unique to us. We may be trying to do the same job, but we're going to do it through our unique giftings, and maybe someone's like just so analytical and they just love to pour over the data, whereas someone else just has that gift of gab and just loves to get in with somebody and talk through things. So it's like we have to lean into our strengths instead of always trying to build up our deficiencies.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also found that addressing someone's mental health often comes with embarrassment or shame.
Hmm.
It's just, you alluded to this before. It's not a comfortable topic or subject to talk about or admit, or whatever. A lot of people feel like they always have to be, having an up day or be on top of their game. What would you say to somebody who feels that way? What's the appropriate way maybe to handle that?
Yeah, I think it does take some bravery. And I know that we are challenging stigma every day. But I think that there is still that fear that will it be counted against me if I admit that I suffer from this or from that? And that's where leaders can lead by example and just kind of maybe they don't have to disclose that they are suffering themselves, but they can, utilize all the resources that we have through our company EAP programs or our various health insurance brokers just to even put out signage or use some of those resources to like have a physical presence that
Yeah,
it is okay, when those mental health awareness month comes around or mental health awareness weeks, lean into that. Make sure that we're using that time to have a physical presence, that it's to challenge that stigma. So um, I know we have a wellness committee here at DCM Services. We definitely bring in outside speakers to speak on the topic. And I'm always floored about how vulnerable people are, how much they look to share and have community there and say, thank you for putting this out here. And they're not afraid to like have an open conversation about what we're struggling with because it is the truth of the day and age we live in. So I
yeah,
think if one person kind of like rips that first band-aid off, you'd be so surprised how many people will gladly open up and it just builds such nice community. But it does take that first person to kind of be on the bleeding edge of it. But I don't think they'll be alone if there's somebody that is willing to be the first
right,
person to
right.
share.
So I think counseling or a therapist of some kind is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Check it
Oh,
out.
totally.
See if it works for you. You might not connect with the first one that you connect with, but or you might not feel a connection with the first one that you talk to, but it's certainly something worth pursuing. And sort of like you said, I think people would feel a lot better having done it and taken that first step. I happen to be a big fan of just anything that's self-help, professional development kind of stuff. There's no shortage of resources out there. I love listening to some podcasts when I'm walking or maybe when I'm traveling or whatever. And, I happen to be a fan of Mel Robbins. I don't know if you've heard her name, but she's wonderful. She's just a straight shooter
Hmm.
and she, just sort of tells things the way it is. But she's a wonderful resource. What are maybe some others that you've utilized or would recommend?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And to your point, if you are a little more private, and that's totally fine that you are, you can find resources in books, podcasts, and you can just have a private journey all to your own. There's often like I said, mentioned your company EAP program usually has confidential resources that are available 24/7 for you. Personally, I've been listening to, I think I mentioned this at a recent conference. There's a book called Burnout by Emily and Emily and Amelia Nagoski, and they talk about professional burnout and how that shows up in the lives of women. I thought that was just, it talks about like completing the stress cycle within yourself. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really mind blowing. I loved that one. Let's see, Mel Robbins, I've listened to her quite a bit too. And I know a lot of people listen to Brene Brown, and I've listened to her as well. But yeah, maybe we should put together a little resource list and attach that. I always find it
Yeah.
interesting to listen to who else others are listening to and what they're
Oh,
picking
yeah.
up.
I
Yeah,
think we absolutely can. That'd be great. Some people are visual learners, some people are auditory, and I can do a little bit of both. So yeah, I think that would be great. Well, this has been a great conversation. In a lot of ways, we've really just scratched the surface. Like
totally.
we said, I think we both agree it's an important conversation to have. It's an important topic to address. It's not one of those things that you want to push to the back burner. It has to be addressed.
Yeah.
I'll use the analogy of a homeowner. I always say a homeowner's work is never done. There's always something around the house that needs attention, and if I ignore it, there's going to come a time where I'm going to say, "Oh gosh, if I would have just taken care of that a little bit at a time, or when I saw it first present itself, then I wouldn't be stuck now with this huge undertaking of trying to, fix this or clear this out or whatever it might be." So I think it's if you sense it, if somebody else is telling you that they sense it with you, the best thing is to take the first step and really do something about it.
100%. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thank you for opening up this space for us to have the conversation. Really appreciate you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I hope that folks will listen, and maybe if we get to the point of being able to post this soon, we'll get some ideas and some thoughts, and who knows, maybe we'll go on the road together and talk about it.
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.